What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. We've got to talk about anime games and find out if anime games are worse off now compared to the anime games of the early to mid 2000s. In other words, do modern anime games suck? Our addiction and Stockholm-esque attachment to anime games, not those kind of games. The Ultimate Ninja Storm series, Raging Blast, J-Star's Victory versus, you know, the issue where you gotta throw hands, where you must weave gang signs. It's blick or be blicked. We've all ventured through our fair share of anime games, and just like many of you who found an integral gaming experience through them during your yesteryears, they were just as important in mine. Even until this day, we've been introduced to dozens of titles since the early 2000s, and if there's one generally consistent truth, it's that the expectation of the consumer is always constant and streamlined evolution. I must be honest, and perhaps it's my aging zoomer brain, but recent anime games kind of feel like they suck a little bit. I don't really kind of feel like they suck a little bit. Of course, there's exceptions. I think it would do well to have a comparative analysis of some of these anime games from the past and the anime games of the present. The Storm series. Anime games are almost like a bad drug, right? Like some Finny. You just can't get off of them. And you think you're not addicted, you just get that little itch. You get that itch and you just keep coming back. I believe the very first anime game I bought on the console was Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2. And oh man, no one was safe from the village hidden in these hands. The combat, the cutscenes, the story. Pure cinema. I gotta be honest, you youngins truly don't know, do you? We didn't grow up with substitution meters. Subs weren't free, ninja. We locked in, we dialed up, and timed that sub to a T. These mechanics made the presence of a skill gap absolutely undeniable. No second chances. Just assess your opponent's next move and time your strike just right. If you were caught in a combo string, then you would become the star feature and the whoop yo ass no jutsu film feature. Storm 3 came up with an updated roster, a whole new slew of ultimate ninja jutsus we've never encountered before, and a new in-game rework of the substitutions. Players were now given a set number of substitutions with cooldowns. Storm 4 kept the recipe ripe and ready as well, forcing players to conserve their substitutions and time the moment of attack perfectly, while also being wary of their opponent's substitutions. And my god, let's not even talk about the banger that was popping off in that main menu. All in all, Storm 2, 3, and 4 were the absolute peak of the Ultimate Ninja Storm series, with the attention to detail in its cutscenes, quick time events, and the ever-evolving canvas of game mechanics adding versatility to strategy and combo variety. There were, of course, the problem children of the Storm series, one being Storm Revolutions and the other being Storm Generations, where assessing the time gap to attack or conserving your subs wasn't really the main focus of combat anymore, but the arrival of the counter system. Yes, the counter system, which brought a whole new meaning to the word domestic abuse. If you got hit by that counter, you could not cry for help. You couldn't even use your substitutions. All you could do is sit there like a good little boy and take it. And of course, we also had to deal with this clanker. I hate that clanker.
Clanker.
Not to mention the recycled cutscenes that made up the story mode of these dreamboats. But hey, at least we had Storm 4 to clean our palates with more quick time events and epic story mode moments, a nerf to the godforsaken counter mechanic, and also Team Switch, or the leader switch mechanic, which allowed players versatility in their combos and presented a new way of turning offense into defense when your opponent used their substitutions. Now we're met with the new kid on the block, Storm Connections. Now listen, bro, how much of y'all actually fell for this? Like, how much of y'all fell for this? Like, come on. I mean, this quote unquote brand new Storm game was essentially Storm 4 with a Naruto to Boruto extension, plus a few more Boruto characters and a little bit more combo versatility, where you could then pick your opponents up off the ground after, where in the previous games, the combo would simply finish and you couldn't do anything with it. Listen, this is not a new game, and it fits the mold of many modern anime games that found themselves doing just enough and just meeting the bare minimum to draw consumers and diehard fans into purchasing their product. This ish is a photocopy of a photocopy.
That's my bar. Shit. He copied my whole fucking flow.
I will acknowledge that the developers aren't entirely to blame for this. The consumers have to take some parcel of responsibility for funneling their money into this over-glorified DLC. I mean, this brand new game is over here dropping Kurenai as DLC. Kurenai and a few good men. Listen, Kurenai left Team 8 like 4 Ultimate Ninja Storm games ago, and they just dropped her as DLC for you boys in connections. I mean, Bandai's clearly got the anime gaming community in a genjutsu with this one, but I will concede that the combos are looking kind of nice. They're looking kind of nice. I'm gonna be honest though, Storm Connections was nothing more than an over-glorified DLC update and puts modern anime games to shame, serving as a model of what not to do at a stoplight. There's sort of been a slog in the evolution of the Naruto gaming sphere, in my opinion. I guess with the exception of Shinobi Striker, though that type of custom character genre isn't really my favorite niche, so there is some bias there. At least I'll acknowledge that they tried to do something different. But the Naruto games have veered off a cliff, recycled and repackaged content that they expect anime gaming fans to pay for due to their bond with the anime adaptation from which it's based. Regardless of the quality of the content or innovation in the actual mechanics of the game, emits suffocating waves of hubris. At the end of the day, gamers are still gamers, and when the dust is settled, we want quality over quantity. Accepting anything other than that simply leads to the anime gaming industry machine willing out more half-completed anime games and expecting the reputation and density of the anime's fan base to paint over the canvas of creativity. If you want better anime games in this regard, first and foremost, I think the community must learn to vote with its wallet. Oh, the Dragon Ball Z games. What did their convergence ultimately lead to? Sparking Zero. Sparking Zero, in my opinion, is actually a great example of what a modern anime game can become when the fan base's voices finally shatter through. The journey of Dragon Ball games has been both rough, bumpy, and rocky over the years, but all in all has ultimately always tapered out, I want to say. The Xenoverse games gave us the opportunity to engineer our own created characters, personalizing the player's experience in a way it had never been done before. Personally, I wasn't particularly a fan of the Xenoverse series, as I stated, am not a created character type of guy, but I can't deny the bag of tricks it opened up for a lot of the player base and the sense of togetherness it spawned from allowing us to farm ultimate moves and skills with our friends or team up in 2v2 or 3v3 PvP battles to take the fight to our opponents. However, the repetitive nature of Xenoverse, the inconsistent RNG drops, mundane story mode where you essentially fight clone versions of Z fighters or their greatest foes grew a little stale for many, including me. Of course, that compared with the abhorrent netcode and lag spikes during online battles made Xenoverse feel like a photocopy of its predecessors more than its own independent hit piece, and eventually hindered its cycle of growth. This game came off as somewhat dull to me, to be quite honest, and it's why I parted with it quite quickly. More was needed to evolve and build upon the Xenoverse formula, though the community itself is still active today seemingly. Ultimate Tenkaichi, as we all know, gave us rock, paper, scissors, and cutscenes where we were made to decide if we wanted to dodge a huge-ass ball of energy hurling towards us, or just stand there like a good old lad and get blasted to bits. Dodge! With little to no options remaining for the players to string together combos, and of course a hard-as-hell QTE event that still lives in my nightmares. I'm telling you, my controller was giving a proper burial after the story mission against Meta Cooler. Fighter Z brought forward a new hope for the 2D fighter sphere and a new octave of immersion to the anime gaming community as Arc Systems showed the world that when the plane of anime and video games meshed together correctly, both the fighting mechanics and the art style could create an unforgettable gaming experience that could endure for many years to come. Something about the gameplay, particularly the strategy and gaming knowledge needed to mix combos against an opponent and optimize damage, never seems to get old. The community itself is still alive and well today, and in fact refuses to die. Sparking Zero is kind of like this holy grail that finally circled back and closed the loop for the rendition of Dragon Ball games that fans have been begging to be made for the longest, Budokai Tenkaichi 4. Now, I know many people have their own personal opinions about Sparking Zero, and trust me, I do too. Roshi after image spam, paired with Mafuba, Yajirobe meta, and of course, the ultra ass pull Sonic Sway, which is in no uncertain terms, my least favorite part of this game. I don't believe the balancing issues holistically make Sparking Zero an example of a bad modern anime game. The game mechanics are quite niche and involved, with the additions of perception and flying mechanics. Moreover, I'd say the devs were pretty streamlined in dishing out patch notes to balance the broken abilities within Sparking Zero. I personally don't think that the game is going anywhere anytime soon. Dragon Ball fans have been asking for another arm of the Budokai Tenkaichi series for an eternity, and it's finally arrived. For me, it's akin to the likes of sort of Raging Blast 2, which came with an overwhelming roster of characters, though the malleability of combo strings in Raging Blast magnified the skill gap required for high-level combat exponentially when compared to Sparking Zero, which doesn't necessarily make Sparking Zero suck, but that parameter is there and can't be ignored. Whereas Sparking Zero relies more on perception for defense and this sort of spamming teleportation defense, Raging Blast 2 relies more on attacking when your opponent whiffs an attack and closing the gap at the right time. I'd still play Sparking Zero over Burst Limit, Battle of Z, or Ultimate Tenkaichi any day, don't get me wrong. And everyone who's shaking their head at me right now, just remember, you could have gotten another coming of Ultimate Tenkaichi in 2025 instead. It never gets worse. The roster for Sparking Zero is quite robust and satisfying, and even now is ever growing. More than anything, I adore the fact that Sparking Zero was 5 years in development and wasn't getting rushed. It mirrors the spirit of the Budokai Tenkaichi series. With the release of Fighter Z, followed by Sparking Zero a few years later, the future of Dragon Ball anime games looks bright. When compared with the likes of Storm Connections and other anime games of the present, Sparking Zero is a godsend in today's sphere of anime games, and we shouldn't take the meticulous care that was put into it for granted. Now, if you bought Dragon Ball The Breakers, that's on you, man. That's your fault. That's not even getting on the list. It's not even mentioned on the list here. Jujutsu no Cash Grab. I mean, Curse Clash, of course. Please raise your hand if you fell for this shit, because I've got a clown mask with your name on it. Jujutsu Curse Clash came out February 1st, 2024, and holy moly, was it a big fat stinker. The gameplay was, well, floatier to say the least, and the graphics looked like they were the bastard child of that dusty PS3 you've tucked away in your closet. For one of the biggest shonen, I'd say this is a major setback in the sphere of anime gaming, and an explicit display for the absolute disregard many devs have for the fans' investment into their series. I think a lot of these anime game creators, rather than creative ingenuity, rely on the consumer. Yes, you, the consumer's attachment to the anime adaptation, rather than the quality of the game itself, to push forward sales. A lot of us will see Dragon Ball Z or see Naruto Shippuden, and in this case, the most popular shonen at the time, Jujutsu no Kaisen, and cross-link associations between the quality of the show and the caliber of the game it's being adapted into. However, the two elements are independent from each other, but the innate attachment leads to a flood in sales and thus feeds the anime game cycles where devs can push out seemingly incomplete games while the fan base pays top dollar for them. It creates a vicious cyclical system where the fan base becomes preyed on due to their strong attachment to the series. But at some point, you gotta start blaming yourself. I mean, come on, cuh? Many of the characters from Jujutsu Curse Clash were later released as free, suggesting the game wasn't even really fully in its polished form before release. I'm not going to take anything away from the concept of Jujutsu Curse Clash, as they did try to do something different in terms of integrating domain expansions within the combat, whereas someone like a CC2 might have solely restricted them to ultimate move animations. And of course, you rarely get an anime game with tag teams nowadays, aside from Xenoverse, and of course the late but great J-Star's Victory Versus. But my god, people, show your work. There's massive room for improvement here because the game in its essence, at its core, is massively incomplete. Strikingly small character rosters, bare bones story mode. Hell, the main menu is literally taking shots from the anime openings of Jujutsu no Kaisen. I mean, at least try to hide the unpolished nature of your product. Not all modern anime games are like this, but it does add to the low effort pool of anime games that have come and gone over the last couple of years. Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash gives anime games a bad name and follows the pattern of riding on the glory of its shonen's adaptation rather than engineering a product that makes both the adaptation and video game come to life, and that can stand by itself. Hopefully, coming anime game releases won't be as brackish as this. One Piece Pirate Warriors, or should I call it One Piece Piracy Warriors? Because my god, this Gumu Gumu no Jackin' / One Piece game is pirating money from your wallet again, and again. And people appear to be raring for the 5th turn of this game. Perhaps you like this genre. Well, I don't. There's something about these One Piece video games that, in my opinion, have come to leave a bitter and stale taste in my mouth over the years, particularly the One Piece Pirate Warrior saga. There's no improvement of the formula in my opinion. You traverse a map staged with a horde of enemies, pressing heavy and light attacks till your meter's full enough to launch one special ability. You then make it to the boss after you complete whatever objectives are on the timetable and rip them a new one with some quick time events. Or if you don't have that, just watch the cutscenes. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of One Piece too. Don't red rock me here, right? But if there ever was an example of new era anime games becoming solely dependent on the anime game's notoriety to gloss over the lack of creative ingenuity, One Piece Pirate Warriors is the greatest example. The events mirror the story arc, but the gameplay is so restricted and that every character follows the same formula in whiplashing hundreds of enemies at once, then releasing one huge big attack to finish them off. I mean, I know I don't have to mention this, but the graphics never seem to really have received an update. Still look like its prior versions, which were released on the PS3. Though they did push out a next-gen upgrade, which may have maybe pushed them to PS3 Pro grade of quality, a mirror copy of a video game that's released repetitively over the course of the years doesn't satisfy anime gaming fans and dilutes anticipation for the next installment to come. Gamers need innovation, a retooled and refined version of the game that wriggles out of the troughs and eludes crumpling the potential of the product. One Piece Pirate Warriors is merely one example of what happens when creativity is called to crash and burn when the weight and notoriety of the anime stumps any progressive steps or incentive to improve the gaming adaptation. The One Piece Pirate Warriors differentiates from, say, a game like One Piece Odyssey, which makes its own spin on this sort of open world RPG where members of the Straw Hats lose their memories and you as a player gets to explore this island, fighting many of the strong foes to recover them. One Piece Burning Blood is also a modern game, which I would say is unique. It's a game that comes to mind in terms of actually trying to step outside the anime game norm and try something different, especially within the One Piece gaming sphere side of things. I actually hope to see another installment of this game, as I had a pretty good time battling my friends one-on-one, as well as utilizing the Conqueror's Haki and Haki system itself to extend combo strings, shattering the guard of the Logia Devil Fruit users and whooping some butt with Doflamingo. There's so much more they could do with this product in my opinion, especially with the Ornament Haki and Awakenings, and in doing so could bring some much needed revitalization to the modern world of anime games by drawing upon the world of its shonen muse. The crux of the story is that many anime games fare straying from their established models, and in doing so bleed out their game's potential to become so much more than what it is. Though there are certain missteps that are worth avoiding more than others, taking risks is important. It's how the Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles game came to life, an Ultimate Ninja Storm Shippuden model touched up with a slew of new mechanics. Yet with Sparking Zero, we see that there are just some formulas that we are not willing to shed yet due to the attachment that the players have grown with them over the years. I think it's more about taking calculated risks, right? And not casting domain expansions that Jujutsu no cash grab your wallet using a mirror model, which lacks any effort in the realest sense, riding off the back of its anime adaptation's prestige. The modern anime gaming scene has many upon many improvements to make for its players, and while some games remind us of the obnoxious crimes committed by developers repeatedly with their mundane formula and photocopied models, which in my opinion somewhat defines the anime game scene of today. Overall, I think the true potential of anime games is still lying latent and waiting to be awakened. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the state of modern anime games. Are they worse off now than they were in the past? Is there hope for the future? Comment on the worst anime game you've ever played in your life. If you want more analysis of your favorite characters or fictional worlds, go ahead and smash that like button below, turn on that notification bell, and subscribe for more. This channel is ever evolving and will continue to grow to appeal to the audience at large. Remember that the direction of progress is forward and it's only up from here. I will leave a link to my socials and descriptions in the link below. And with that, remember, if ever you're lost in the forestry of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.